Hi everybody, my name is Amy, and this is the first segment of my video. I'm going to call this family the Smiths, and I'm going to call the children Mary and John, just for purposes of the video. Um, so here we go. Hi Mr. and Mrs. Smith, thanks for coming in today, and just want to welcome Mary and John. I know that I spoke with you, Mrs. Smith, on the phone, and I do have some background information a little bit from our phone call and on what the basic problem is. And I want to thank you for taking the time to shed some light on that. And hopefully we can get some input from everybody on what their general feeling is on what each of you feel that the problem is. Um, so, John, if you wouldn't mind, maybe, well, first maybe we can just, I didn't go too much into detail with your mom on the phone about each of you, but I know that we're here because of Mary's hospitalization and her recent discharge, and we're going to talk about that. But John, why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we can, why don't you just give me a little bit of background about yourself, and then we can move on from there. And then John tells me a little bit about himself, and then Mary tells me a little bit about herself. And the reason why I asked John about himself first is because John is very withdrawn in the room, as we know from the background information on the sheet in the classroom. John is blaming his sister, basically, for all the worry that she's created in the family. So I go to John first for information. John proceeds to tell me about himself. And Mary, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself, and Mary tells me a little bit about herself, and then I move on to Dad, Mr. Smith. I know that you're retired. Your wife told me that we had a little bit of we were kind of trying to figure out what days you were and weren't working so that we could get the schedule going here. So I'm glad that you were able to make it in. You're obviously a key component to this meeting, and obviously a key member to the family, being John and Mary's dad and your wife's husband. So very glad to have you here. So thank you for coming. And the family talks a little bit, we're going to talk a little bit about the problem. And, and as the interview goes on, the family, we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to talk to them about moving into goals. So, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I know from speaking now a little bit with Mary and Tom that a lot of the friction that's going on between Mary and Tom, and correct me if I'm wrong, seems to be stemming from some conflict between the two of you. So maybe one of the goals that we could work towards here would be for you two to resolve the conflict between one another, between you two, and leave Tom and Mary out of that adult conflict. So anything in terms of what mom and dad, if mom feels unappreciated by dad, mom can express that to dad. That would be a goal. And not express her dissatisfaction with dad to the children. Is that agreeable? So we can make that a goal. And we can maybe another goal would be, well, why don't you guys tell me what else are we looking for here? Maybe, okay, some support for Mary in her recovery from her addiction, and Mary is looking for support from Tom, from mom and dad. So we're all gonna be more supportive, and let's be concrete. We're looking for some concrete support. So, and how can the family do that? Attend Al-Anon meetings. Okay? And are we willing to do maybe a once a week Al-Anon meeting to show our support for Mary and her recovery? Everybody? Okay. Okay. And then in terms of our meeting here, what are we looking at? Once a week? Are we all in agreement? Sounds good. Okay, so that's 3 solid goals that we're all in agreement on, and I think that's a good start for us. And then moving into the second segment, in terms of the parents bickering, I'll do a segment here. The parents bickering. Parents are going to be blaming themselves, we'll imagine, for Mary's overdose, her attempted suicide. And this is what I would say in response to that. Guys, if I could just cut in here and just say, Mary's in the room, and instead of, it might be more helpful to speak directly to Mary and for dad to say how Mary's overdose made dad feel and how Mary's overdose affected mom. I felt this way. I felt this way when you overdosed, when you attempted suicide, when I found out that you were hospitalized. This is what your drug addiction does for me. This is how I feel. Speak directly to Mary about how you feel, not to each other. This is about your relationship with Mary. And that's how I would address that. And then for the third segment of ending the session, for homework, I think it would be important as a social worker, as we're always focusing on instilling hope in our clients, I would want to focus on the positives. At the end of this first session, I would imagine if I was in this family's position, I would imagine feeling drained at this point, and I would want to focus, I would want my family, this family, to focus on what was positive. What are the strengths in this family? Everyone showed up to this session. I would want to focus on their commitment to one another. So I would ask them to each think about and come back with 3. I would tell them, I would say, so for next session, next week I would ask all of you to try to come up with at least 3 things that are going right for you guys in your family. 3 things that are good about your family. 3 things that you value in your family. And so we can share them with you, so that you guys can share with each other at the next session. I think that would be good. If you can't think of 3, at least come with 1. And I would say that would be the homework assignment for the next session. And that would be part 1, and part 2, which would be directly related to working on those goals that we set today, would be to write down one thing that you did, one step that you took related to directly related to reaching the goal. So if you went to an Al-Anon meeting, write it down. That would be related to the goal of supporting Mary in her recovery. Mom and Dad, if something was bothering you, and Mom, if you were feeling unappreciated by Dad, if you were feeling overwhelmed one particular day, and Dad, with the chores, and Dad was, chilling on the couch, instead of complaining to the kids, you went to Dad and said, I'm really feeling it today. I worked really hard. Can you help me out? Or, I'm just really feeling unappreciated today. And you went directly to Dad. Write it down. I think that would be part B of the homework. And I guess that's it. Thanks.